I would highlight the actions of the European Union, or rather the elite that has seized power in Brussels, as one of the main threats, if not the main one. They are trying to subordinate national governments, forcing them to neglect the interests of their own people, to abandon the results of elections and referendum conducted in European countries, and to submit to the usurping role of collective Brussels, the Brussels bureaucracy, which no one elected and whose composition is determined by compromises between lawfully elected national governments. Europe is once again trying to dictate its own conditions, its desires, which are superficially connected with the Ukrainian crisis. It uses the Ukrainian crisis to assert itself, to put spokes in the wheels, and to plot against the United States and all those who want a fair settlement. The saddest and most dangerous part is that in Europe, and in Brussels above all, but also in capitals like Berlin, London, Paris, and not even mention the Baltics, there's a revival of the theory and practice of Nazism. Frankly, Nazi approaches, openly ignoring what the Nazi regime is doing in Ukraine. Just like Hitler, and before him Napoleon, though there was no Nazism under Napoleon, yet Hitler, like Napoleon, put virtually all of Europe under arms and threw all of Europe under Nazi banners against the Soviet Union. I do not want to pay too much attention to this. Mr. Moores has said a lot, which is an absolute manifestation of racism, Nazism. So, the old habits and genes that Mr. Moores inherited from his relatives do not die. They persist. This disdain, this arrogance, this feeling, dare I say, of representing a special race manifested in the phrase you quoted as well as in many of his statements about what Germany should represent in the future. Absolutely clear revanchist ideas and, to a certain extent, as I've already said, misanthropic. And now, under the Nazi flag, with European money, with European instructors, with European and overall Western intelligence data, Europe is increasingly arming Ukraine with modern weapons. Europe, through Ukraine, using Ukrainian bodies, is once again waging war against our country. Now, reasonable voices, including in the United States, in some countries of Europe, and in our structures like the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, are advocating for the principle of arms limitation, of arms control, including transparency, proposing to recreate all these schemes. Recently, a lot has been said about the new national security strategy of the United States. One of the main goals of this strategy is to ensure that Europe knows its place, that Europe does not attempt to impose the liberal orders it has been proud of for decades and has worked with democratic administrations in the United States to strengthen these liberal orders, that Europe tends to its own affairs, not trying to drag the United States into its not-so-clean games, designed to promote a liberal order that suits the European elite, interventions into the political life of all other states, direct interference in internal affairs, including bans on election results, as was the case in Romania, and then in Moldova and many other countries, is blatantly obvious. The United States national security strategy tells Europe to mind its own business and not to hope that we, the United States, will constantly support you in your adventures. We are not against competition, as you know, but competition should be fair. When competitors try to suppress with 100% or even 500% tariffs, that is not the globalization that the United States advocated post-World War II. When sanctions are introduced, directly declaring that the causes are the political positions of a particular country or individual, it is not equality, it is not respect for human rights, it is dictation. And when these sanctions concern, say, banning the activities of the world's largest companies, as in the case of our company Lukoil, a private company, and the state corporation Rosneft, well, I see nothing else in this when examining the essence of what is happening. I see nothing but a desire to suppress competitors by unscrupulous methods. This means that the West, including the United States, far from always has enough strength for fair competition, and they have to resort to unscrupulous, utterly undemocratic, anti-market methods to maintain their dominant positions. Frankly, the theft that is in the Europeans' blood can be seen in the example of the frozen Russian assets. By the way, Iranian assets are also partially frozen, as are the assets of Venezuela and many other countries. So, this impulse of theft, it seems, is genetically embedded in many of our Western colleagues. Now, they are starting to argue among themselves whether Russian money can be stolen. Some reasonable voices are heard, but they are simply being drowned out by shout from Brussels. It is not without reason by the way, that in many media outlets in Russia and abroad, Ursula von der Leyen is called nothing but Führer Ursula. It is troubling that there are no rules, as they say in the West. There should be rules on which the world order is based, meaning that what benefits them will be called the rules. Now even these rules, the West used to manipulate from case to case. I will mention the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power station where IAEA observers have been present for almost a year or more, and every time the Ukrainians bomb the facilities of this nuclear station, IAEA observers shamefully say they do not know where these drones and shells came from.
This is also wrong. Some Western media, so to speak, from times immemorial, deliberately try to give the same impression that during the height of a crisis, one cannot trust the Russian Federation. How would you respond to them?
Why answer to a non-starter? Do they have any examples behind these statements to persuade everyone else that Russia cannot be trusted? I have not heard such examples. If the example is, as they say, the unprovoked attack of Russia on Ukraine, well, you know, as the diplomats go, so do the arguments. The West was warned from the very beginning. If Europe wanted to be an active participant in the Ukrainian settlement, it had many chances. It blew all these chances. Those who accuse us, when you interview them, if such cases occur, ask them for facts. Where are the facts that have even once confirmed that Russia did not fulfill its obligations? These are said by those who try to shift everything from a sick head to a healthy one. These are liars. We must call things by their real names. Now it is necessary to remove these root causes. It is good that the Americans have understood this. They clearly said that there can be no NATO, and they clearly said that the land where Russians have lived for centuries should become Russian again, and that the Russian language, Russian culture, the rights of the canonical Ukrainian Orthodox Church should be restored. This is also, you know, Europe is like a failing doctor who does not want to understand. Goodbye. What illness have you come to him with? And they just give you some pill or mixture, so you feel a little better for 5 minutes. These European doctors do not make a diagnosis, but the Americans are trying to figure it out. And the latest contact with them inspire hope that they understand our position deeper, understand more deeply what needs to be done to ensure that this conflict is resolved reliably and sustainably, not just achieving another ceasefire to rearm Ukraine. The process is underway. We are waiting for a reaction from the Americans regarding how they spoke with the Ukrainians.